This is Michael Osterlink. I'm speaking with Bruce Fein, a constitutional scholar and conservative pundit, and we're going to talk about Libya and the possible impeachment of Obama. Bruce, your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Michael. When President Obama declared that he was crowned with unilateral authority to invade, undertake war against Libya without congressional authorization, that represented the greatest usurpation of power in the history of the Republic, over 220 years. And indeed, the Founding Fathers, when they were at the Constitutional Convention, conceived of the impeachment power as a way to remedy what they called subversions of the constitutional order. They, at that convention, also understood that perhaps the greatest pillar to the constitutional order of the Republic was the requirement that only Congress could decide on the initiation of warfare, that only Congress could take us from a state of peace to a state of war, because it had such momentous consequences, not only for the budget, not only for the lives and liberties of those soldiers who might have risked and given that last full measure of devotion, but because it empowered the president with a whole artillery of additional powers: secrecy, taxation, appointments, the jingoism that comes from warfare that would threaten all of the individual liberties were at the centerpiece of the Declaration of Independence and the whole reason for the nation's existence. And President Obama not only stated that with regard to Libya he could act unilaterally, that he would also do so any time in the future he thought a core national interest was at stake. And think of what that means. If the humanitarian crisis in Libya was a threshold for war, that means there are 80, 90 other countries in the world that are easily or more in desperate need of humanitarian aid. Think of China and Tibetans, or Zimbabweans, or those in Sudan, or those in Myanmar, or India, where there's infanticide against women disproportionately, Jordan, where there are honor killings, Syria. It's an endless list of wars that we would be undertaking with no authorization from Congress whatsoever. And how can you remedy this kind of flouting of the Constitution? There really is an incapacity of the judicial branch to try to hold the president to account, because you can't find what the lawyers call a standing, a plaintiff who enjoys a right distinguished from other citizens to prevent the president from going off to war unilaterally. And that means the impeachment power is the one power that Congress is entrusted with to try to insist that the constitutional order be returned to the state the Founding Fathers intended, and that results in the impeachment in the House of Representatives by a majority vote of a president for high crimes and misdemeanors. A trial would be held in the Senate. If he's convicted by a 2/3 vote, then he would be removed from office. It's not a coup d'etat. Impeachment is not the equivalent of any kind of revolutionary change. You would have a Democratic vice president who would assume the presidency. But to go back to the fundamental point with regard to Libya, it's simply a proxy, if you will, of a claim of unlimited executive power, which means the end of the rule of law, unless it's thoroughly repudiated by the Congress of the United States.
Thanks, Bruce.